Your Daily 180, 180 seconds of pure Bible study.
Do you want to change? At some point in every person's life, they want some kind of change. It may not be to live in accordance with the will of God, but they want some kind of change, and people struggle with change. And there's all kinds of gimmicks and gurus out there that tell you how to change and the ingredients of change. But ultimately, if we're going to change in such a way that we can have the very best life, the abundant life that Jesus promises in John 10 and verse 10, we need to appeal to God, and we need to go to His Word and find out, Lord, what would you have us to do to truly change our lives? In Ephesians chapter 5 and verse number 1, we find a very interesting verse there. There, the Apostle Paul, speaking to the Christians at Ephesus, he says, "Therefore, be imitators of God as dear children." Now, you know, one thing that I have found about children is quite often, usually, they imitate their parents. I look at my grandchildren and I am amazed. At a very young age, they have some of the characteristics of their mother or their father, and they imitate them. When my children were young, they used to imitate me. I used to think they were mocking me, perhaps, and they would act like me. When I was at the School of Preaching in Knoxville, and we would be traveling a long distance, and on the way home, my two sons, oftentimes they would begin to re-preach my sermon, and you know, it was amazing. Sometimes it was like they could do better than I could. And why is that? It's because they spent time with me. How are we going to imitate God? We must spend time with God. Let me ask you this question. If I gave you a challenge and I spit out a name, and maybe it's the name of a person you've never heard of, you've never been around them, you've never seen them, you know nothing about them, and I said, now your responsibility is to imitate this person. And you would say, okay, give me some time. I've got to know something about them. No, just start imitating them. You couldn't do it. You don't know anything about them. You don't know their mannerisms. You don't know the vocabulary that they use. You don't know any of those things. And yet many people, they have a desire to be like God, to be like Jesus. That's God's great plan, is that, according to Romans 8 and verse 29, that we would be conformed to the image of His Son. And the only way we're going to do that is if we know Him through His Word. Join us again tomorrow.